The fallen pine had likely been there for years, its trunk resting in a long, slow lean against the earth. Branches collapsed into a soft lattice of needles that had faded from green to a muted brown, yet still held the shape of shelter. Beneath it, where the world narrowed into a low den of wood and shadow, the marten rested, its slender body curled into the hollow formed by roots and settled snow. Its fur, thick and deep with winter's fullness, blended with the earth's toned quiet. The chest patch of pale gold, the only bright thing in the subdued light. Snow fell lightly that morning, not in flakes that danced or hurried downward, but in grains so small and weightless that they merely drifted, finding places to settle without sound. It gathered along the fallen pine's trunk, filling the crevices where bark had peeled, resting in delicate drifts atop the broken branches. The forest beyond was still, its pines standing closely together, their needles catching the snowfall before it reached the ground. The air smelled of cold resin and deep soil, the kind of scent that is not sharp but steady, one that lingers and becomes part of breath without needing to be noticed. No wind moved. The branches overhead did not shift. Even the snow seemed to fall without disturbing the space it entered. The marten's eyes remained half open, watching without urgency, not searching for movement, simply observing the place it belonged to. The snow gathered slowly across the clearing, softening outlines, smoothing roughness, blurring edges into gentle curves. The forest floor, once patterned with twigs and roots, became something even and quiet. The hollow under the pine held warmth, not warmth in the sense of heat, but the deeper warmth of being hidden, enclosed, part of the land rather than exposed to it. Far off, somewhere beyond the line of trees, a single sound echoed, perhaps the distant creak of ice on a stream, or the slow shifting of snow from one pine's bough to another, but it faded quickly, absorbed into the forest's calm. There were no footprints near the pine except those of the marten itself, faint, neat impressions, preserved in the snow's top layer. No one had passed through here recently. No one watched. The world remained quiet in a way that felt complete, as though nothing was missing and nothing was expected. And so, the marten sheltered beneath the fallen pine, and snow gathered around it without sound, and the day rested entirely in itself. The day unfolded in the same muted tone, light diffused through the pale winter clouds so evenly that shadows did not form, and the forest took on a softness that made every edge gentle. The marten remained beneath the fallen pine, its body still except for the slow expansion of its ribs, with each quiet breath. Its warmth gathered inside the hollow, held by the close walls of roots and earth and wood, the air there slightly less cold than the open world beyond. The pine's trunk, heavy with age and weather, lay with the dignity of something that had once stood tall and now rested without struggle. Snow clung to it in layers, some newly fallen, some settled long before. Each layer pressed lightly into the one below it. The forest floor beyond the pine was covered in a thin blanket of snow that had smoothed every contour. Stones, twigs, fallen needles, all softened beneath the weightless, steady drift. The trees stood close together, tall and dark, needles gathering the snow before it reached the ground, so that the sound of snowfall was not sound at all, but the quiet accumulation of seasons. The marten's whiskers flickered once, sensing the faint movement of cold air that shifted only enough to be felt, not enough to be seen. Its eyes, deep and reflective, looked out from the shadowed hollow without expectation. There was no hunger driving it forward, no scent calling it outward. Everything that could be known in this hour was already present. A raven perched somewhere high in the branches of a spruce farther off, but it did not call. Its body was still, its presence only a shape in the upper dim. The woods did not ask for sound. No creature moved quickly in this cold. A deer trail passed not far from the fallen pine, but the tracks there were already softened by snow, their edges rounded and blurred as though they were memories rather than signs of passage. The orchard that lay beyond the trees was unseen from here, but the marten knew of it, not as a place, but as a texture of scent and open light. Yet there was no thought of going now. The forest's silence did not invite motion. The snow continued to fall in fine, steady grains, each flake landing without altering the world, only adding to its gentleness. Nothing shifted sharply. Nothing began or ended. The day moved forward the way breath moves through lungs, without awareness of its own direction, simply continuing. The marten closed its eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to rest inside the certainty of being hidden, sheltered, held by the fallen pine and the slow patience of winter. And outside, the forest remained still. The world did not need to change. The afternoon did not arrive in any marked way. The light merely shifted into a slightly deeper hue, a soft thickening rather than a change, and the forest absorbed it without altering its posture. The marten remained beneath the fallen pine, its body relaxed but alert in the quiet, a presence woven seamlessly into the hollow of roots and snow and earth. The pine's branches, though long since dry, still held the shape of shelter, needles layered in soft, uneven patterns that muffled sound. The snow that gathered upon them rested in delicate piles, the weight so slight that even the thinnest twig bore it without strain. Around the pine, the forest floor was strewn with fragments of seasons past, faded cones, pieces of bark, threads of moss gone still in the cold, yet all of it lay hidden now beneath the soft white layer that winter had drawn over the land. The marten's breath was slow and even, misting only faintly, dissolving as soon as it touched the cold air beyond the shelter. The scent of resin lingered in that hollow, subtle but steady, mixed with the darker smell of damp soil beneath the surface freeze. Nothing interrupted the air. No sudden gusts disturbed the pine boughs. No wing beats passed overhead. Even time itself seemed to move in long, wide arcs, unhurried and without direction. In the silence, the forest held its own memory. The paths where elk had once crossed, now buried beneath snow. The hollow where fox kits had played in spring, now an indistinct shape beneath frost. The rhythm of thaw and bloom and fall that was not forgotten, only paused. The marten shifted slightly, adjusting its paws beneath its chest, but it did not step forward. Its eyes remained open, patient, reflecting only the muted light. Snow continued to fall, but so gently that it seemed not to fall at all, only to drift downward until it found a resting place. The forest was full of small, quiet movements that were not movements. Ice settling deeper into the earth, water slowed beneath frozen creek beds, the faint stretching of wood in cold. But these were not things heard or seen, only felt as part of the stillness. Far off, on the slope beyond the pine, a hare's tracks crossed a clearing. But the hare itself had already passed, and the world had returned to stillness as though it had never been interrupted. The marten did not follow. It did not hunger sharply enough to break the quiet. Hunger existed, yes, but hunger here was part of the rhythm of winter, not a call to motion. The trees stood with the same poise they had held since morning, branches neither bending nor tensing. They were simply there, rooted both in the ground and in the season. The sky remained pale and without texture, neither clearing nor thickening, holding the same soft brightness of day that had not changed since the morning the marten found shelter. It might have been noon or late afternoon or something between. Time did not mark itself anymore. The marten, the pine, the snow, the forest, all inhabited a moment so steady it felt outside of hours entirely. No one came through the forest. No footsteps marked the snow. No voices from the farmhouse beyond the orchard carried to this place. The world did not look inward or outward. It rested simply in being. The marten blinked once slowly, not from tiredness, but from the calm of belonging. And in that stillness, there was nothing missing. The day continued, unbroken, self-contained, whole. Evening did not begin with darkness, but with a gradual softening of light, the faintest drawing in of the day's pale glow, so subtle that nothing in the forest changed shape, only tone. The marten remained beneath the fallen pine, its body a quiet curve against the earth, its fur warmed not by sun or air, but by the closeness of its own breath held in the sheltered space where wood and soil met. The snow continued to gather in small, weightless grains, settling across the pine's bark, across the marten's den entrance, across the forest floor where the world had already grown still. The light filtered through the trees in longer, slower strokes now, though the sun was nowhere visible, hidden behind layers of winter cloud. The trunks of the pines stood in patient vertical lines, dark and tall, their presence steady rather than looming, as if they too were resting. No wind disturbed their branches, even the highest needles held motionless, heavy with quiet. The scent of the forest deepened slightly, not stronger but rounder, more complete, as evening gathers into itself. The air grew colder by degrees so gentle that the marten did not shift in response. The cold was familiar, expected, a part of the season that did not ask to be noticed. A slow, barely audible creak passed through the fallen pine as the wood adjusted to the drop in temperature. A sound so soft it felt like the tree was exhaling. The forest floor held no tracks newer than the marten's own. The hare's distant passing softened now beyond recognition, and even the prints of deer, further out near the orchard's edge, had blurred into gentle depressions that looked more like memory than trace. The sky above the forest canopy deepened into a muted blue-gray, but no stars appeared, not yet, and perhaps not at all tonight. Clouds spreading into a single, unbroken cover. The world was not waiting for nightfall. It was already embracing it in slow, widening breaths. The marten lifted its head only slightly, nose testing the air, but not to search. It already knew the sense of this hour. Frost, resin, pine, earth under snow, the faint metallic stillness that comes just before the world fully yields to evening. Its body relaxed again, paws tucked, tail curled lightly along its flank. There was no need to leave the shelter. No hunger pressed, no disturbance called, no curiosity tugged. The forest beyond the pines seemed to stretch outward in a calm that did not end. Tree after tree standing in quiet formation, ground resting beneath them, sky resting above them. Even the distant stream, covered now with ice, did not speak. Whatever water moved beneath did so without sound, slow enough to feel more like memory than motion. In the orchard beyond the tree line, branches would be gathering snow as well, but that world felt far away. Not distant in space, but in feeling. Under the pine, the marten was in a place without before or after, only this single continuous moment of stillness, where existence did not require attention or thought. And so, the light continued to fade in the softest possible way, and the snow continued to gather without sound, and the forest rested without expectation. The marten remained warm in the hollow, body folded into the quiet shape of belonging, and the day, without ending, became evening simply by continuing to be. Night did not fall so much as it settled, slowly and evenly, like snow gathering in the hollows of branches, each moment layering itself over the last, until the distinction between day and evening dissolved, and the forest took on the stillness of something complete. The marten remained beneath the fallen pine, its body curled in the familiar hollow where roots, earth, and wood created a shape that welcomed warmth and held it close. The last traces of daylight slipped into a muted silver gray that did not brighten anything but allowed the edges of the world to be seen without effort. The trunks of the pines stood as soft, vertical shadows, while the spaces between them deepened into calm darkness. Snow continued to fall in the same quiet, steady drift, collecting along the pine's trunk and around the entrance of the hollow, forming subtle curves, smoothing every contour it touched. The air held a stillness so complete that sound no longer seemed missing. There was simply no need for it. The small, distant movements of the forest, the settling of ice on a stream, the gentle shift of a branch under accumulating snow, the slow pulse of sleeping earth, did not rise to the surface. They remained beneath, like the heartbeats of a creature at rest. The marten's breath was steady and warm in the hollow, each exhale fading into the cool air without clouding. The temperature inside the den balanced carefully between its own living heat and the cold held outside. The sky above was a seamless sheet of cloud, pale enough to reflect a faint glow from whatever light remained beyond it, though no moon could be seen. The world was illuminated not by brightness, but by its own softness, a light that did not cast shadows, but allowed shapes to remain themselves. The orchard beyond the woods was quiet under its own blanket of snow, the branches of the fruit trees holding still, the ground beneath them resting just as deeply as the forest floor here. The farmhouse, unseen but not forgotten, would be dark now as well, windows dim, walls settled into the same hush that lay over the land. Nothing moved along the path that led from house to orchard, nothing crossed the frozen clearing, nothing disturbed the layered snow that grew just a little deeper with every passing minute. Yet the night did not feel empty. It felt whole, as though everything that belonged to the world had found its rightful place, and no presence needed to announce itself. The marten shifted once, not to rise, not to leave, but simply to settle more comfortably into the warmth its own body created. Its whiskers brushed the fine snow near the entrance of the hollow, but the snow did not stir, and the air did not change. Time in this place did not progress. It broadened, it opened, it rested. The marten, the pine, the snow, the trees, the orchard, the unseen farmhouse, the covered stream, the clouded sky, all were held together in a single, unbroken moment, without direction or demand. Nothing was expected of the night. Nothing was required of the creature in its shelter. The world did not wait for morning. Morning would come when the snow decided to lighten, or when the clouds thinned enough to shift the color of the sky, or when the marten rose and moved once more through the forest. But those were not concerns of now. Now was whole and quiet and complete. And so, the marten sheltered under the fallen pine, and snow gathered without sound, and the night rested without asking for a name.